I used to have this friend. I still have this friend. I just haven't talked to him in a long time. But a long time ago, he started out as a therapist. I'm not exactly sure what his degree is in or how far he took his educational path. He's not the kind of therapist who can prescribe medication, so he's not a medical doctor, but he did have a job as a therapist for a while before he transitioned into consulting. He had a private practice and he became disillusioned, not disillusioned, or he started out to become disillusioned, but then he figured out what the problem was, and once he solved the problem, he is better off than he was before, and now he enjoys his job very much. Whereas before, he thought he was trapped in a job that he was afraid he might have made the wrong career choice. When he started out as an intern, he had a couple of fantastic therapeutic interventions where he would see a patient and the patient would have this kind of stuck state in their life. They would realize their life was not what they wanted it to be, but they didn't know how to change. And so by helping them overcome some of the trauma from their past and coming up with some kind of new collection of strategies to implement in the world, they would be able to achieve better results than they were getting before. And watching that process happen, helping somebody go from a stuck state, I don't know what to get out of life, to I'm in control of my life, I can build whatever life I want. Watching that transition was very, very, very enjoyable for him. Helping a person make that process was very, very rewarding to him. And so that's why he chose this career. But the longer he did this, the more he realized that the patients that were able to make regular changes, that were able to make significant changes, to be able to improve financial conditions, those patients were few and far between. And he doesn't know if he came late in the game after social media took over and maybe back in the days before the insurance industrial complexes took over, because a lot of people he started to suspect they would come to see a therapist not because they really had a strong motivation or a strong drive to improve themselves. They just came to talk to somebody about their problems, and he started to suspect that a lot of people had this strange, maybe subconsciously held intention behind why they went to see a therapist. Like, they knew they were on the sidelines of life. They knew that a lot of people in the world were getting results they wished they could get, but they didn't really feel compelled to change their behavior. But they had this voice inside their head that said, you need to improve yourself. You need to do something different. You need to change how you behave so you can get better results. And for a lot of people, that voice was kind of frustrating. That voice caused anxiety. And he started to suspect that a lot of people would come to therapy not to listen to that voice, but to get that voice to shut the fuck up so they could just relax on the sidelines of life and be absolved for having to improve themselves, to be absolved for feeling the need to improve themselves and just blame the world for their problems. And he started to figure out how to kind of not judge these people, but sort for these people, because a lot of times people would come to him and he started to develop this not very helpful mindset that, well, if you're going to come talk to me and you're not going to put any effort into improving yourself, but you're going to continue to come see me and you're going to continue to pay me, that's okay with me. I just got to figure out who I'm dealing with. And so he kind of figured out this way to sort through his patients and figure out the ones that actually wanted to help, so he could put some effort into these people and separate those from the people that just wanted to excuse their lives or complain about their problems and validate that it wasn't their fault. And he figured out three kind of conversational strategies that these people that wanted to stay on the sidelines would use that would help him identify them so he wouldn't waste his time trying to help them. And the first of these was, I've already tried that. Like they would come in, they would say they would want some result, they would dream about having a better result, but he would say, maybe you should try this, that, and the other thing. And they would say, oh, I've already tried that. As soon as they said that, he figured that was strike one. Strike two was a variation of that, when he would say, why don't you try this, that, and the other thing? And they would say, oh, I already do that. It doesn't work, which is a variation of the first one. And the third one is he would give them some idea to do some kind of self-development work, some introspective work, and they would think about it, and they would say, I don't see how that's going to work, and they wouldn't even try it because they couldn't imagine having success in their mind. That would be strike three. And he would kind of carefully elicit these three strikes over several sessions. But once someone went through all of these three strikes, he would just stop trying to help them, and he would just listen to them rant about their problems, listen to them complain about their neighbors, listen to them complain about their coworkers, and he would give up trying to help them. But the few people that wanted to change, he would help them change. It's kind of like this lecture I saw from a history professor, and he said that one of the most common promises that people that want power over other people use is the promise that to the citizens that realize there's a problem in the world and they need new leadership, that the promise is your problems are not your fault. The reason your life sucks is not your fault. You don't have to do anything different. The problem is all these other people. If you put me in power, I will fix all these other problems so you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is allow me to have power, and somehow magically your life will change without you having to do anything differently. And he started to suspect that a lot of his patients had this kind of fantasy, and this may be some kind of instinctive fantasy, because a lot of people these days have this fantasy that they recognize their lives kind of suck, but they have this fantasy that they don't have to do anything differently, that something else has to happen other than them, something else has to happen other than their behavior has to change, and when this other thing happens, their lives will just suddenly get better. And this is a kind of a fantasy that a lot of his patients had, and it started to become not very rewarding, not as rewarding as it used to be. Sure, he had a few patients, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, that would actually put in some effort to change their life for the better, but most of his patients weren't like that. Most of his patients were content to let their insurance pay him for every visit and just come and complain about their problems, and this started to be a real drag, and he started to worry that maybe he had chose the wrong profession, because he didn't want to think the future of his life of just listening to people with problems, complain about their problems, and then pay him $300 an hour. Yeah, the money was good, but it wasn't rewarding in the least. Then he figured out the problem. The problem was not that he was in the wrong profession. The problem was that he was sorting through the population to get the wrong people to talk to. He needed to figure out a more effective way to sort for people that actually wanted to change. I guess back in the old days, before the insurance industrial complex took over the therapy business and started paying for therapy with insurance, people that came to see therapists would pay out of their pocket, and they would be much more motivated to change. But when he went into the profession, that wasn't the case anymore. And so he just needed to figure out a way to sort his clients better, to get people that were much more willing to put in the work to make a better life. And he found that through private consulting. And so now he consults with a lot of different companies, and he deals with their salespeople. He helps to train their salespeople to become better salespeople. And it's the same kind of thing. You talk to people, you find out what kind of issues they have, their internal emotional issues, whatever trauma they have, and you figure out how to heal that enough so they can get out into the world and be able to apply different strategies and have the confidence to apply better strategies so they could become more persuasive, so they can become more effective. Because the people that have sales jobs, they recognize from their profession that the better they operate in the world, the more money they'll get, and it will be a much more effective and immediate change. Whereas people that come see a therapist that are having their insurance pay for it, they're not necessarily going to get a better job if they successfully go through therapy. They're not going to necessarily have a better relationship if they go through therapy. But people in the sales profession, that have a career, that are in the kind of upper echelon of society, that are in the upper income level of society, that have a career where they're talking to people and they're persuading people, these people are much more likely to apply the techniques. These people are much more likely to use these problems or use these patterns, use these strategies to improve their communication skills so they can become much more persuasive. And he would always use his experience to give them motivation to get even better, because he would look at these new clients, these salespeople, and say, look, I used to talk to people that didn't want to change. In fact, most people couldn't do what you do. Most people wouldn't be able to thrive in your situation. Most people don't have the experience that you have. Most people are content to sit on the sidelines and let life pass them by. And so long as they don't feel like it's their responsibility to improve themselves, they're okay. But you're different because you're listening to me right now, because of the experiences you've had in your life, because of the ambitions that you hold in your mind right now. As you listen to these words, you have something that most people don't. You have a spark that most people don't. You have this deep suspicion that you are destined for greatness. This is something most people don't have. You have this deep suspicion that you have a great purpose in your life, and you are already on the path to achieving your purpose. It's just a matter of fine-tuning your internal structures, your internal states, and figuring out how to fine-tune your communication strategies. And the more you fine-tune your communication strategies, the better you'll do, the more persuasive you'll be, and the more money you'll make. And you realize something that people on the sidelines of life will never realize, and that is that you realize life is a continuous practice of improving yourself. Life is a continuous trial and error feedback system. Life is a continuous sequence of events where every time you interact in the world, every time you have a conversation with someone, that is an opportunity to improve yourself so you can do even better next time. You are in a very unique position because of your background. You look at your life right now, you look at your life a year from now to now, and a year from now in the future, and you see continuous growth. You see continuous improvement. You see continuous progress, continuous increase in income, and a continuous improvement in your relationships. And so all you need to do is keep doing what you're doing, keep getting in the game, and keep learning how to improve your communication skills, improve your interpersonal skills, and you will continue to improve your financial situation.